there's this really cool writing. It's called The Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. So then it goes into chapter 2. In chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place.
Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Hello and welcome back to Leading with Spirit. I'm here with Elysia Skye. Really excited to introduce her to you all today. Her work centers around a lot of motivation, a lot of inspiration, and she touches on a lot of different areas in life. So I'm really excited. Elysia, share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Spirit Bird, and thank you to everyone tuning in. I am so grateful. I'm an intuitive business coach and life purpose coach, and the two are really hand in hand. I come from a long line of intuitive women, and what a blessing it has been. I've been encouraged my entire life to look at my stuff, sometimes the stuff that is not so fun to look at, and it has been such a rewarding journey, ups and downs, of course. And the reason I got into business coaching is the entrepreneur in me, the creative spirit in me, loves to create, and I have been very fortunate to have created a handful of successful businesses and helped other people do the same. But the intuitive piece is essential, especially being a soul who came in with such a strong intuition. I believe we all have a strong intuition. It's just up to us how much we want to give it the reins or not. And there are definitely ways to enhance and increase and develop your intuition more. But having an intuitive business coach, I found, and I had one, is incredibly essential because sometimes spirit, your guides, your angels have a message for you that needs to come through. And it's not always about how to create a course or how to build a funnel. And really, when you are in collaboration with spirit and can receive guidance to help you get out of your own way, then the path illuminates for you to truly shine. And that's what I get to help people do. And it's such a blessing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I can see the way that you use your phrase, the brilliance method, and just helping people shine in general has a pretty good thread onto like what you actually do. There's like all the 3D stuff, and then there's what you're actually doing underneath.
Right. Thank you for noticing that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious because you said you come from a long line of intuitive women. So has intuition really been a part of most of your life, or was that something that you had to reconnect to at some point?
It has always been a part of my life. And I see it more and more now with, mothers that are, in the Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, like they're starting to raise their kids with energy as also an important factor in their life and world, not just the, material world. So I really find that to be very cool. And my mother, she wanted to name me Elysia Heaven. That's how much of a beautiful hippie dippy she was. But my father said, can we please compromise on something else? So they went with Elysia Skye. And so that's the name that I've kept. And yeah, we played energy games. She taught me meditation. We did hypnosis to cure my nightmares. I would ask her all sorts of questions like, hey, if we're on Earth and then there's the Milky Way, what's outside the Milky Way? And how big does that go on and on and on? And she truly taught me to trust myself. And my godmother also, she's recently passed away, but she was a physician. And she would call me and tell me just the most fun things, and we would play little psychic games. And Like I would be, sometimes I would go visit her and I would sit in her office and she would go in, I would see her go into a patient's room, not even grab their folder. And she would just know what's going on with them. And then she would eventually come out and grab the folder. And she said, once in a while, clients would ask her, patients would ask her, how did you know what was going on with me? I'm a brand new patient. You didn't even look at my chart, right? It's like sometimes you just know. So truly these incredible women that I've had in my life, and my sister is so intuitive. We've empowered each other to just trust and know. And that definitely gets a little scarier when you start doing readings for other people because you don't want to say something that you don't think someone is ready to hear, or you don't want to be wrong. So when I was in my 20s, I did do some formal training. I found an intuitive teacher. Her name is Anne O'Brien. She is still teaching. She's wonderful. And I went through her multiple levels of her intuitive training program. And what I learned there was such a wonderful thing. Two pieces that stand out I'd love to share. One is about grounding your energy, because as spiritual people, if we are not grounded, especially if we romanticize spirituality, we can tend to leave our body a lot, and that can lead to illness or stress or fatigue and things like that. And I thought spiritual stuff was just the sexiest thing ever, and I thought it was more fun to not be in the body. And then as I got sick, I realized I need to ground. So not just the people I was born into, but the people I trained under. And the other thing that I really learned from Anne was to just feel safe, to just say what's in my heart. When you're learning in a student teacher environment, it's okay to be wrong. And we don't have to put so much pressure on ourselves. And you realize when you're listening and you truly trust yourself, you're not usually wrong. And that's one of the most powerful lessons anyone can learn when listening to their intuition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I found with intuitive work in general that, a lot of times we try to measure it with the same uh, frame that we measure, logic with. And obviously it's like a completely different context. So
Yeah.
I find even in situations where we're testing our edges of the intuition, or afraid of saying something wrong, even if in the moment it doesn't seem like the quote unquote right thing, it's like we're still evaluating it from a different context. And when we actually let things play out, it is a completely different frame. So in that way, it's like opens up a lot of permission to just try and trust that even when you're wrong, there's still actually a purpose or meaning behind it.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's just something that hasn't been revealed to that person yet. So they'll call me a few months later and be like, okay, that thing you said finally clicked, or I finally see it, or now it's finally accurate. So that's a thing too. And also, and if we're connecting on behalf of someone and we're not supposed to know something, hear something, see something, we probably won't. And also, if we get a clear message to see something, but we're encouraged not to share it, we have every right to not share it, if it's not what's best for that person to know right now. And I found that to be one of the most challenging things about being an intuitive is knowing something and also knowing it's not the right time to tell them. And I've asked my guides, why would you even tell me? Because now I might feel like worried about this person. Like, so that you can send them love,
Mhm.
right? We're just messengers of love. We are love. Everything that we do is love. It just always comes back to that and connects back to that. Anyone who's in pain is just crying out for love.
So tell me a little bit more if we're gonna keep applying that idea to business. Do you feel like there's a wrong choice in business? Can you make mistakes?
100%. Absolutely. And the caveat to that is, well, everything just like in life, right? It's all a lesson. We are learning, we are growing. So the point is, what are you learning from this mistake? What are you benefiting from this mistake? And how do you measure the word mistake, right? If we make a mistake that then cost us a bunch of money or cost us clients or cost us time, then on the human level, we can be very frustrated about that. And it's annoying, inconvenient, and sometimes devastating, especially to the wallet, right? But if it was intended, I believe, for us to learn that lesson and make that mistake, then we're going to. There's the opportunity to pivot and pivot again and pivot again. But we truly get better through a combination of listening to and trusting our intuition and also failure.
Mhm.
And I think spiritual people fall into a trap thinking, well, I'm not supposed to make mistakes because I'm supposed to know better because I'm intuitive. But that's not how it works. You're wearing a meat suit, right? You're here for the game. So let's play the human game. Yeah, we can make mistakes. And often mistakes come from the ego. They come from trying to be something we're not, trying to copy what someone else did that might not be our zone of genius. And that's okay. We learn something, we fall into that trap for a little while. And, we always get more by showing up and failing than if we did nothing at all. And it helps us to find our way and find our voice. And I've learned so much from working with a variety of coaches, some who I do not align with, of what I don't want to do as a coach, what I don't want to do as a business owner. Do I wish I had all that money back that I invested in them? 100%, absolutely. But those lessons are invaluable.
Yeah, 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 that's absolutely true.
It's
I'm
a
really
great question.
curious from your experience, that place for new coaches, new business owners, or even people with experience that are about to do something that's different than what they've normally done. There tends to be a big hesitation, and I notice often I feel people want to feel like the fear is supposed to go away before they take the step, right? And I'm curious from your experience what you find really helps in that place.
Hmm. Well, there was a time where my husband and I were trying to have a baby. And I remember I was cast in a pilot called The Psychic Housewives of Los Angeles, and I was one of the housewives. It never saw the light of day, but it was a really good time. And I was surrounded by these women, most of them who were older than me, who I really looked up to. And I was telling them that we were actually, going to try and have a baby, and I was so scared. Like so scared of all of it, right? The time commitment, the money. I never doubted I would be a good mom, but just like all the logistics of it and like physically having one, right? It just sounded terrible. And they said, you're never going to feel ready. Nobody ever feels ready until you're like so pregnant that you're just like, get this thing out of me, I'm ready, right? That's a different story. So I took that with me. That was 2000, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something. And so I took that advice with me as I was launching this business that sometimes we just don't feel ready and we may never feel ready. So I think there's a balance between just do it anyway, just do it scared, but also as much as you can have your ducks in a row and have some fail safes there if you can. Great, get everything lined up. But it's exciting. And there's a difference between fear and excitement that some people don't recognize. Oh, sorry, that some people don't recognize. And the difference between fear and excitement, truly, Spirit Bird, is you're breathing or you're not, right? So imagine if you don't like roller coasters, you're on a roller coaster. And my sister loves roller coasters. I don't, right? So you're on a roller coaster and you see you're going up, 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 right? That's the building the business. That's the, okay, maybe I'm learning more, I'm investing in something, or I'm going outside of my comfort zone a little bit. And now I have to put myself out there. People might judge me. Sorry about the puppies barking.
Oh,
People
it's
might judge me. People might wonder what I'm doing. I got a degree in something different and now I'm doing this. How dare I? How dare I? Have permission to lead a bold, brilliant life when someone else is working a job maybe that they don't like anymore, right? So all those thoughts come up as we're going up the roller coaster going, well, shit, I'm up here. I don't think I can get off this ride now, right? And so then as you're going down, you can do one of two things. You can hold your breath and go, oh my God, let me just get to the bottom and get it over with. Or you, which is what I was doing, or you can do what my sister does. And I looked over at her. I'm like, why does she like this shit? She's over there taking these big deep breaths, looking, oh wow, I can see like that castle all the way from this ride, right? So if we breathe, if we can go, okay, I'm going to breathe through this. I'm going to choose to go from a place and create from a place of excitement instead of fear. You'll just have a better time on the ride,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
So we breathe through it. You do it scared. And I was never the girl that really had a backup plan, but there have been other things as we were talking about offline. I have another career that I've essentially left behind as a video producer. And now I occasionally will do some trainings for people or some live events, but it's really scary. It's really scary when, especially if you have a stable income and then you're going to go be your own boss, right? I love when people quit their jobs. It's one of my favorite things, but you have to do it practically and strategically so that we don't starve. Otherwise, the ego starts screaming because the ego can't survive without a body, but our spirit totally can, right? So our spirit is the one breathing in excitement while our ego is holding our breath. So I'm holding my hands up for anyone who's watching versus listening. If you have a full-time job and that full-time job has all the gold here, and your new thing, your coaching business, your speaking business, your podcast, whatever it is, doesn't have a lot of gold yet, and then eventually it starts to, right? And then eventually it starts to, and then you're spending less time in the job. Then when they start to even out, you reduce your hours, right? And then you eventually just go all in over here. And there might be a point where it's not 50-50 and you take a leap, but you've proven to yourself that it's working. So go all in. Trust your magic. Yeah. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah. 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 I just wanted to pause around that because we can tend to skip over the simplicity of like, just trust it.
It can be scary.
Mhm. Tell me, what was for you, did this come kind of easily, or were there any specific parts of this journey for you personally that you found? Like, what was the biggest challenge for you, you think, internally?
Well, um, there have been a few, but the first one was one that I help other people with a lot now, which is it's okay if they judge you, right? So I
Tell me
moved
more.
to,
Yes.
okay. I hear you. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19 years old to be a movie star. And my entire life, I was in theater school and the lead in the play. And then I went to college for theater and also psychology. And I told everybody I was going to be a movie star. And everybody believed me. And I went to LA when I was 19. I got my Screen Actors Guild card. I booked a couple of things. And then I started producing videos. I started producing short films because I got a little bored with some of the auditions I was getting. Like, I would get an audition to be a cheerleader, and I'd show up in a cheerleading outfit, and they would look at me and be like, "No, you've got like an old soul. You're like the witch in the woods." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the witch in the woods." Oh, wait, no, I'm here to be a cheerleader, right? So I was like, I better create some roles for myself. So I started writing and producing and directing. And long story short, when I started producing more, and then eventually started coaching. Even now, right? Are you still acting? Are you still acting? What about that? What about that? Because I got so many people invested into that dream with me. And then when I pivoted, people could feel abandoned or tricked or what happened to that? Or if I couldn't do it, what about their dreams? Can they do their dreams if Elysia can't do her dreams, right? So there was a lot of fear of like, no, I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it, right? And even now, I mean, I have an agent, I have a manager. I occasionally book some random weird thing. I do some voiceover. I do a lot of audiobooks, but I don't feel a deep connected desire to go be a movie star. And that's okay. And I had to be okay with that. And I had to get the people around me to be okay with that. And it's not about talking anyone into anything. It's just leading by example, being a lighthouse and going, this is what I love doing now. And here it is. And if you're someone who has tried a lot of things, and a lot of spiritual people have had their hand in a lot of different things, right? Maybe I was a healer at this point, or now I've got my massage certificate. I'm gonna be a massage therapist, right? Now, okay, now I'm gonna do this. Like the people in your life will adore you, and some of them will question, "Are you okay?" Right? Did you figure out what you want to be yet when you grow up? And you know what? They're asking you because they're asking themselves too, but you're giving them permission to go for a dream, even if it's, even if your grandmother has been retired, but she's always wanted to write a children's book. You're giving her permission to write it, even when you think she's judging you. So that's been the biggest, hardest thing was, especially when I got into the online coaching space, and it's like, okay, post on social media, post on Instagram and Facebook, now get on TikTok, tell everybody what you're doing, tell everybody what you're doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like my friends and family probably don't care to see me posting all my business stuff all the time. And I had to find the balance there of I'm also friends with people and have connected with people who do care. So you learn how the algorithm works, right? They'll engage with you or they'll not, and it's okay. So what I've learned from a marketing perspective is if you're going to use your own social media to market your business, it is critically important for you to stay in touch with your friends, family, and loved ones as well, like through text or phone calls or visits, because they will start to disassociate with you on social media if they only see your business. And they might have a false idea of what's going on with you if they're only seeing business stuff. They don't know what's actually happening in your life unless you're sharing it. So, in that regard, final thing I'll say about it is the practice, it all goes back to vulnerability, right? When you're sharing your life online, or if you have a podcast or you're speaking, just tell the truth. Tell the truth about your journey. Share when you fail, not just when you're up. And that actually builds trust in future clients. You might think, oh, if I'm not doing well financially, no one's going to buy from me. That's not necessarily the case. You know, if you're, especially if your business has nothing to do with helping other people make money. But even if it does, and mine does, when I have ups and downs financially, I have to be vulnerable about it. I have to tell the truth about it. And I am responsible for the choices I make if I take breaks in my business,
Mm-hmm.
right? It all comes back to people just want to feel safe, right? They want to feel safe around you and they want to feel safe around themselves. So it's just about honest communication. And that was my theme for 2024, radical honesty. And now this year's theme is radical honesty plus discipline.
Ooh.
Ugh, so hard. Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about the word discipline, but maybe we'll save those for another time.
You got it. I have so many thoughts about the word discipline too, which is why I decided to make it my theme so that I could release judgment about it and bring even 10% more discipline into my life from having very little or
Got
none.
it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
On that note, it struck me when you were sharing your experience with, really saying what you wanted to do and be, and now you're faced with that you're changing directions and what will other people think. And, I think the piece of safety that I'm hearing and feeling from what you're embodying is when you made the decision that actually you want to do this now, you made the decision. You can feel that in your system that it's like all the way through. And I'm sure there are moments where you had some questions or doubts, but largely you weren't in that indecision. And I think that's really the piece that sounds like helped get you through that. So when you were, I guess that's my question, when you were faced with the
Hmm.
potential of people's judgment, is that how you got through, just like knowing that this is your truth?
Yes, to a certain degree. So there were some logistics involved.
Okay.
Uh, the pandemic in 2020 occurred. I was living in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles was not a cute place to live during COVID. Probably similar to New York and San Francisco. Just you weren't, if you walked your dog outside, you were supposed to wear a mask or somebody yelled at you. I didn't know what was going on. I really didn't leave my house for like 3 months. And I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of girl. So I was like, all right, if we're going to be safe from COVID, I am all in and I'm going to do all the things. And then 3 months went by and I'm like, all right, I'm over it. And so my husband and I moved to Nashville. And in moving to Nashville, it was a big leap in saying, am I still in the entertainment industry?
Okay.
And if I am, how do I do it remotely? And if I'm not, what is it that I'm going all in on? So we owned a house in LA, and I said, I'm going to sell my house in LA, and that's going to bring me enough money to buy a house in Nashville and to invest in finally going all in on my coaching business. So I
Mm.
finally had some means and some support to do it where I didn't feel as scared. And I still continued having remote production jobs when I moved. So some of it was logistical. But what's really interesting, so my mother raised me Buddhist, and in Buddhism there's a term called Sanzo Shima. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Okay, so it more or less translates to breaking your karma. So in this situation, in any situation, when you declare, I am changing, I'm going to think or feel a different way about whatever this thing is. I'm going to change a behavior pattern or a thought pattern. The universe lovingly might keep you in check and go, are you sure? Are you sure you want that? Right? And so Sanzo Shima will show up over and over in your life until you don't even notice it anymore because you are so sure. Or for a while, it's tempting. So a funny thing happened. I moved. We sold our house. Well, our house was for sale. We moved into another house here that we had previously bought as an investment property in Nashville. And I'm unloading my U-Haul. And I'm like, oh my God, I've left Hollywood and now I'm going to be a coach and a healer full time. And this is amazing. And I get a phone call. And it's a friend of mine who I used to work with years ago. And he said, Elysia, with everything going on with the election and COVID and voter rights and this and that, we're putting together a handful of live streamed over Zoom celebrity table readings, Dazed and Confused, Goonies, Saturday Night Live, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and more. And all the celebrities from these movies are going to participate. None of them know how to use Zoom. None of them are used to speaking into a camera. You're the only person we trust to take really good care of them. You're going to have all their phone numbers. You're going to get on. You're going to teach them how to do this, and you'll help essentially backstage direct them until they're brought on live for the read. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, thanks. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, these are some of your heroes. Like, I've always wanted to work with Tim Curry from Rocky Horror. I have a picture of him right here in my office, right? And all Adam Sandler, these amazing humans. And I was like, I went all in. I left. I'm talking to my friend Mike. Mike, I left. He's like, I know, but we need you to come back. Whew. Like, Spirit Bird, I was unloading my U-Haul, right? So I turned to my husband and I was like, well, I haven't started the coaching business yet. I'm going to do this one project. And I did it. I went back to LA. We were in my vacant house as showings were happening, and I produced this, and I'm really glad I did. It truly changed the trajectory of my life, and I got to work with some of my heroes, and it was beautiful, but it was such hard work. And when I was done, I was done. Nothing was going to tempt me after that, because that was the coolest freaking project I could have ever worked on in my life. It was like I left on a high note, but when I left a month earlier, I didn't leave on a high note. I left kind of annoyed. So that going all in on my business, I had to make that choice, as you said, to close another door, not necessarily to start the new one. The starting the new one was easy. The closing the door was hard.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
You close the door and it creeps open a little bit. And you're like, no, I'm closing the door and it creeps open a little bit.
It creeps. And now I am empowered to say yes when I want to for teeny tiny little projects here and there. And I actually have a television show that I'm developing. It's called The Disappearance of the Universe. It's based on A Course in Miracles, and it's a best-selling book, really great IP written by Gary R. Renard. He has 4 different books. And it's a time travel reincarnation mystery, essentially. And that's a passion for me. So when we greenlight that and I'm producing that, that's going to be a very different story.
Yeah, please let us know.
I will.
Come back and tell us how it's going.
I will. Thanks.
You said when you started the coaching business that was easy, and it crossed my mind. Have you encountered people sort of projecting almost like an envy about things in your life being easy for you when it's not easy for them?
Yes. And, they hit you with the must be nice, right?
Yeah.
Must be nice to do that. Mm-hmm. I went to Australia in November this last year, and it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? So it was like, oh, must be nice to go on holiday, not on when the rest of the world is on a break. You just took a break, and you're gonna take another break, then you're gonna take another break, right? Mm-hmm. So I do get hit with that a lot. And I think what people don't really think about is that it's a choice, right? It's a choice for me to take additional time off work. It might be a financial hit for me to do that, but there's a reason I'm choosing to do it. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to respect that or honor that or understand it, but it's just how I am and who I am. And I think the positive aspect that's come from people going like, wow, how do you, like, who gave you permission to just do this, start a business, move away? The one that people give me shit about the most is how much I travel and how much I leave town. But I have to remind them, I built my entire life and business around being able to live anywhere I want, whenever I want, because traveling is important for my husband and I. And he's in the music industry, so he's going to be traveling and on tour even more than I am. Mm-hmm. So when I created the Brilliance Method, it was an answer to that call of must be nice. How do you do it? I'm like, I'm just going to tell you how I do it. You can do it too, right? So I shifted that shame into power by going, I don't have a secret. here, go for it. And it's up to them to take that information or not.
Mhm.
I love that question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Brilliant.
You're welcome.
Yeah, oh, I feel that one too. That must be nice. I love that you just kind of boiled it down to it is a choice. I find, there are definitely times in our lives and situations where, depending on your situation, you might be faced with more of a challenge, and also that it's nothing actually preventing you from moving through that. And
Mhm.
most of the time, I think we all like to have one particular favorite reason why we can't, that we think that nobody else has. Like, well, I can't because this one specific thing, but if I didn't have this, then I could. And we all have our own particular version of that.
hmm And
Um,
I think too, you and I are unique in our perspective on life, maybe how we look or dress or just how we are, right? And so if has anyone in your family ever said like what gives you permission to just wear the long earrings and shave part of your head and have a spiritual business? Like why do you get to do that? How do you respond?
yeah. I haven't necessarily had that, fortunately, actually, in
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
I definitely was challenged when I was younger. I had family members that were more concerned. They were like concerned about other people judging me and
Mm.
having to face that as a young person. So that was like a huge part of my journey is being really clear on what I like and what makes me happy, but feeling kind of forced to conform for a certain period of
Mm.
time. And then very much not being willing to do that. And so all of like the stuff that came out of that.
Yeah.
But I do hear that a lot from other people. Yeah,
Yeah.
where it's like that is that question, like, how are you doing it? And it's like, well, I do just make the choice and I realize that there's risks involved, but I also really believe that I'm capable of managing those risks. And I'm also pretty clear that I'm pretty sure, I don't want to challenge this, but I'm pretty sure that in any situation, I can still find happiness.
Yeah.
So that's like a big sense of security for me.
Beautiful.
So I would love to hear a little bit, we touched on the hesitation in getting into things. What about when you do make mistakes or are feeling burnt out? Uh, I would love to touch on this topic of resiliency, which I feel like is
Mm.
often completely avoided when we're talking about life.
Yep. Yep. I love it. So right before the new year, I led a training called Let It Be Easy. And I talked about, and I'll share here, we're really in three different energy cycles at one given time. We're either creating, maintaining, or destroying. And we have these three creative rings above our crown chakra. And you have to acknowledge where am I and try not to, force the river, push the river. So if you notice you're inspired, right? My husband calls it mad scientist mode. Like you just want to create, create, create. And sometimes you're creating, you're writing, you're doing, you're painting, you're doing music, you're healing, you're doing whatever you're doing. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's like it's already dark out. When's the last time I peed? Have I eaten anything? Like that's kind of a fun feeling. And we call that mad scientist mode. So you're in create. And sometimes it's not that obvious. It might just be if you just feel motivated and inspired to just keep coming back to what it is you're working on. You're in create. And sometimes we're just in maintain. We've gone through a cycle of create, or we've gone through a cycle of destroy or let go, and we're like, it's just time to maintain. I'm just kind of going to flow and balance my energy and nurture and take care of the thing I've built. And then we might be in a destroy period where it's like time to let things go, time to shift, time to change the program, time to put a period on this, right? Close a door on this. It might be a behavior pattern, it might be a relationship. So when we acknowledge we're always in one of these energy cycles, and there's no set time on how long we're going to be in each one. And there's no set order to which one we're going to be in, right? But if we can acknowledge and be present enough to go, where am I at right now? And if you know you've got a deadline, so you better create, but you're in an energetic flow of let go, honor it as best you can, and then you'll avoid burning out. You will feel more resilient when you're taking care of yourself from an energetic place and just going, I'm really in an energy of destroy right now. So let me just go all in on that, and that'll help clear that out quickly to then go back into create.
Mm,
And I do think that's where a lot of my resiliency has come from is I honor where I'm at energetically. And that's hard when it's harder when you're working for someone else, clearly, because you're asked, especially in the United States, to just be productive, be productive, be productive. So in that essence, okay, then go into your create, maintain, destroy at home as much as you can, right? Clean out your closet, sleep more, do creative things. Make sure you take your vacation days. Don't get so sick to where you're using your paid time off for vacation days. So that's one piece. And the other piece, there's this really cool writing. It's called The Autobiography in Five Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. It's from the 70s. Have you heard this
Mm-mm.
before?
Nope.
Oh, may I share it with you
Please
and your
do.
audience? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually really cool. So our autobiography in five short chapters. So this is everybody, right? And this is the point of this is to notice our learning and where we blame ourselves, right? So chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. So that first chapter, that's how so many of us are there in like teens and 20s, right? Especially I fell, I'm lost, I'm helpless. This is not my fault. It's taking forever to fix this, right? So that's chapter 1 in whatever phase we're in. And then we slowly but surely start to take a little bit more responsibility for our choices and for our energy. So then it goes into chapter 2. In chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. This is not my fault, and it still takes a long time to get out. Right? So in chapter 2, we now have a little more self-awareness, and we start to go, when we say, I can't believe I'm in the same place, that's a catalyst for change. That means we are dissatisfied getting the same result over and over, but we still might be blaming other people for how we got here and how long it takes to fix it. We have to do the work, right? So then we go into chapter 3. Chapter 3 is I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's habit. It is my fault. I know where I am. I get out immediately. Okay, cool. I think this was like when I was in my 30s, right? I see it, still fucking fell in, right? It's a habit. This is my fault. I'm taking responsibility for it. I know where I am. I know how to get out, and I get out immediately. Okay, great. But then chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it, right? We're choosing through our learning, through our resilience, through our awareness, through taking personal responsibility. I'm going to walk around that damn hole. I know there's a hole there. But chapter 5 is one line. I walk down a different street. Bam. Complete and total ownership of choice, of awareness and empowerment, even through fear to try something new. She didn't fall in. She walked down a different street.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool?
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for taking us through that.
You're welcome. It's really, really great. If anybody wants to look it up, just Google Portia Nelson. I think the official title was There's a Hole in My Sidewalk. The romance of self-discovery or something like that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
hope that's helpful.
That's great. It reminded me just on this topic of resilience and what we were sharing earlier with like, ugh, what if I get it wrong, especially when it comes to the intuitive pieces. There have been a handful of times in my life, probably should be more, but where I became aware, one of them that I'm thinking of right now is I tracked back and I was like, wow, I had a particular cousin that I was like, me and my cousins tormented her a bit. When you're a kid, you're just being a kid. And I saw it later and I was like, oh, that was probably awful for her.
Hmm.
And so I contacted her and I was just like, hey, by the way, like, I'm so sorry that we did that. Like, let me just acknowledge it here. And I remember her just being like, oh my gosh, you have no idea what this means to me. And right beforehand, I remember being like in that spot. Like I feel like we were talking about the sidewalk and it's like the it's not my fault kind of somewhere between that and like I can't believe I'm in here or like I don't know exactly where I am in that story, but
Yeah.
the concern is like, oh my gosh, if I actually acknowledge and admit this, like what might that mean? And it was the complete opposite of what I think where my resistance was. And in the end, it was like, actually, that was not that hard. And it didn't mean I'm a bad person at all. And actually, I got to see like one of my healing gifts in action, which is responsibility, being like, I'm so sorry about that. Let me just go ahead and
Yeah.
take responsibility and acknowledge this thing. And in a way, it's like when you see that you can do that, um, there's less to worry about. Like, what if I make a mistake? Well, then I'll just acknowledge it.
That's really beautiful. So why don't people feel like they can safely take responsibility for something?
Oof. Yeah. I think lots of reasons.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll speak, I think, to where I've seen it helps me stay clear now. For me personally, that fear is like if I take responsibility, then I might be making true uh illusion or story that you have around this situation. Like if you're judging me or if you're missing the point or if there's something in that other person's perspective that I don't want to reinforce. That has been some of my fear. And so what's helped me is actually just being clear, like this is not what this is,
Hmm.
but I will take responsibility. And I don't need to explain all that. It's like it's not, that
Yeah, yeah.
washes away the point, I think. But for me, that had been probably my fear. Is like, oh, if I actually admit I'm sorry that we teased you, does that make it true that like I was a villain in her story or something like that, you
Right,
know?
you're making it real.
Right, right. And so
Mm.
for me, it was just like, actually, like, that's not mine. And also, I'm not a villain. I'm a good person.
Yeah.
Well, I might be a villain, but that's okay. But I'm still a good person. I'm clear for
Yes,
that. So I can now approach this cleanly, I think.
right.
Does that make sense?
It does, yes, and it invites forgiveness on both sides.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alicia, how delightful are you? Oh my goodness.
I love you. This is great. And you'll be on my show tomorrow, so
Yeah,
hopefully they'll both come out
absolutely.
soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're getting to play a little bit here. I'm sure you're full of lots more magic than meets the eye.
thank you. Just a little. So.
And also, you have a gift for the listeners here. Tell
I
us about that.
do. I do. So I wrote an ebook called The Seven Secrets to Waking Up Happy Every Day.
Mhm.
And this was created around the same time as the Brilliance Method to help people who weren't necessarily ready to invest in coaching yet uh, understand how they can just wake up happy every day. An answer to that call that you asked earlier, right? Like, and we talked about, well, what gives you the right? How did you do it? All that stuff. So there's 7 steps. It's really easy. There are some journal questions, and it's such a beautiful little book. So you're invited to download it. And if there's availability on my calendar, you'll also be invited to jump on a clarity call with me, though those are fewer and far betweener these days, but you'll have my direct email, and I love to connect. Even though I do have a team that helps me, I always try to be conscious and respond to people individually, even if it takes me a little bit to get back to you. So that's a way for us to connect and for you to receive something and share it with anyone you'd like. We all
Great,
deserve more happiness.
great, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that offering. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
Definitely thank you for owning who you are and taking the risk and shining your light. Yeah, really
Thank
beautiful.
you. Right back at you, honey. We just mirror that. So it's no accident that the universe brought us together. So
Well,
thank
it
you.
was you.
I did reach out, but you said yes. So
Yeah. So
thanks,
thank you.
love.
All right. Oh, that's great. All right. For the listeners, thank you all so much for being here today. Of course, we'll share all that information and Alicia's information in the show notes for you. Holler at us. Let us know how you like this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks again, Elysia. Welcome to today's Q&A episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This question is from our Leading with Spirit Facebook group, and one of the members asks, how to stay consistent with spiritual routine? How do I build these habits? What about discipline? How much is too much when it comes to forcing? Thank you for the question. Love the question. I'm sure there's lots of folks that can relate to this question. So I want to start by answering this with context. It's really important before you try to decide what you need to do and how much is too much and where you're forcing and where you're not. You actually need to find out where you are in the first place. So I like to think about healing processes like a circle. A lot of people will talk about a spiral, that healing is like a spiral. And of course, the circle is the structure that informs that. So when you are exploring something on your healing journey, you're on one side of that circle. And throughout your journey, you're going to learn all the things you need to know about that side of the circle until you're about halfway around. Once you get to that half, you'll probably start exploring the other side of that question. So, with that in mind, with this question, basically around discipline, consistency, how much is too much? Am I forcing, or what I'm hearing from this question is, am I forcing, or am I actually just like copping out of the commitment that I made? And how do you tell? So, first step is to figure out where you are on the circle. One side of the circle is maybe being too rigid. Maybe if you generally feel safer, or if generally the way you approach things is with a question, what's the right way? And let me do it the way that somebody told me is the right way. If generally you're looking for what the authority said on it, if generally you're looking for like what an expert says on it, if you try to like have the same routine every day, if you tend to have a lot of checklists, this can all be signals that you're on the side of the circle of probably discipline, of structure, of consistency. With all things, it's not really good or bad. It's really just about where you're coming from when you're in that place. So, of course, consistency, structure, these are all really beneficial things. And if you tend to be on that side of the circle, then when you're looking at having a spiritual routine, you probably are going to the other side of the circle, meaning for your journey, for your specific journey, discipline is actually less about consistency and rigidity and more about what feels good, what feels flowy. Learning to tune in, if you want to have a regular meditation practice, it's probably more about you having a practice when it feels right and that's deep than it is about you making sure you for sure hit the 5 minutes every single day, right? Now, if you're on the other side of the circle looks like probably no routine, that you tend to be just in flow, that you don't really like schedules, that you like to be spontaneous, that you tend to gather information from your inner experience. And again, this is neither good or bad. It depends on what's informing it. It can sometimes look like being flaky, not following through with commitments, that kind of thing. So if you're on that side of the circle, then likely when you go into this inquiry about discipline, how much is too much? Am I forcing? Am I copping out? If you're on that side of the circle, then it's probably more about discipline for you this time. It's not about the result of what you're going to get. It's about the fact that you're going to feel good when you make a commitment to yourself and you see it through. So keep that in mind, especially when it comes to forcing. The second piece I think for you to ask yourself is why? Why do I need this? Why do I think I need this? And make sure that's really clear for yourself. If it's because somebody told you and you don't actually know why, then I would double check. Like, why is it that I actually want this? Do I feel like I'm more spiritual if I meditate every day? Is that actually true for me? Is that actually true in the world? Is it just because somebody told me, or, because I'm trying to make myself do something that I don't actually want to do? Another question that can help here is when I play with discipline, I like to think of it as my commitment to beauty and my commitment to pleasure. So for me, discipline is more about that I'm consistently coming back to what brings beauty and pleasure into my day and into my life. I tend to fall on the side of the circle that's more on the loosey-goosey, do things when I feel like it, when I'm inspired. I don't like routines. I don't like checklists or boxes. So for me, actually leaning into discipline is an important part of my growth and my journey. And if I make it about make sure I do the thing and I'm really rigid, that's likely going to push me away. And then in order for me to accomplish the commitment, I will have to feel like I'm forcing myself. And then usually the whole thing actually just blows up. So instead, I like to really have the commitment to beauty and pleasure. And that's actually what I'm more committed to. So that informs my actions. So if let's say again, that I'm trying to have a more consistent meditation practice, then me tuning into what brings beauty and pleasure into my life, I can associate that with the meditation. I can associate that I know I feel better afterwards. So my discipline is actually about what I'm feeling afterwards than doing the task. So I hope that that helps. Obviously, there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to this question. But again, I'm so grateful that you asked it because I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And so, in summary, I just want to come back to reemphasize the point that when you're examining this for yourself, the general rule of thumb, start by knowing where you are. What side of the circle are you on? And that's a really good clue into what you're going to need to do. If you tend to be more rigid, likely this journey with discipline and consistency is going to be about you loosening up that grip on what it has to look like. Likely, if you're on the side of the circle that's more loosey-goosey, then your journey will probably be about actually being consistent with something. Either way, when it comes to forcing, that usually doesn't work. That usually makes you have to backtrack. So you can monitor in your system if it feels like forcing, then take a pause and reevaluate where you are on it. Remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place, and then come back to the task when you feel clear. I hope that helps. Take care. We'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget, if you haven't already, please take our Inner Mastery Archetypes Assessment. This is a super amazing tool that's going to help you really quickly understand what your inner mastery archetype is. And along with that, you're going to get tons of insight on who you are, what your purpose is, what your core patterns and blocks are, and also what your core gifts are. It's an incredible tool that we've created here at Holton Healing Arts. And what I love about it the most is it's going to give you context on your spiritual journey. There has been tons of information about energy tools and about manifesting, and I love the topic of spiritual gifts and all of this really beautiful consciousness expanding work is really fun and valuable. And also, without context of who you are and where you are in your path, what you're even doing here, you can only get so far with this consciousness expanding tools. So take a look at the Inner Mastery Archetype Assessment. I'll have the link in my bio for you in the show notes here. It's just a really quick quiz. And not only are you going to get instant insight into your core blocks and gifts, you're also going to get a free PDF that gives you deep insight into some of that patterning, more information on your gifts, magical tools you can use to break through your blocks, and energy reading activities you can also use to help call in the life that you want and start using your intuition and manifesting in a way that feels good and is right for your path. So be sure to check that out. Find me at Leading with Spirit Facebook group and let me know what you got. I'd love to hear what your archetype is and how much it resonated with you. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.